Is it fine if I use this mic, this one, instead of this one?
This is this is for the video. This
Yeah,
is
yeah,
not for
but
the...
is it fine if I use?
This is...
Okay, then I think I will use this one. Thank you.
Is it
So,
a bit,
okay. Like this, is it fine? Okay, so. Sorry, just to make sure. Okay. So, good morning, everyone. My name is Irene Furlani, and today I will present you one of my dissertation project as I'm a PhD student of the University of Passau. And this project is about digitizing extension services, evidence from a two-sided randomized experiment in Indonesia. Before starting, I would like to thank the organizers and also thank them for the prize I received yesterday. So really, I am very thankful about it. Second, I would also like to thank the University of Passau and in particular the research group that I'm part of that is about digital platforms and digital platforms ecosystems. Without them, I wouldn't be able to be here. And also they funded part of the project together with the chair of the University of Passau. And third, but not least, I would like to thank my co-authors, so my supervisor who linked me to the rest of the research team and co-authors of this paper that are from Universitas Gadjah Mada in Indonesia. And without them and their network on the territory, it wouldn't have been possible also, this project. So for those of you who do not know what agricultural extension services are, let me first tell you why are we talking about them, and then I will let you know what they are. So actually, one big point to make at the beginning, and we talked about it already during this conference, is related to the fact that small and medium holder farmers, they account for about a third of global food production. This directly affects the SDG of zero hunger, but also, depending on the practices they use, it can affect also responsible production, that is part of SDG 12, but also climate action. So there are multiple interests for governments to promote agricultural innovation, agricultural practices in terms of productivity, but also climate perspectives. But unluckily, it all comes with a cost. And everyone in this world has a budget. Actually, digital platform can reduce of cost of this information diffusion, because if the governments want to promote this innovation, he needs middlemen to reach out at granular level all the smallholder farmers that he would like to incentivize to adopt certain practices. So agricultural extension services are exactly this. And what they do, like they operate with these middlemen called extension workers, that they support and train and diffuse information to smallholder and medium-holder farmers. But the question is, can digital platform improve agricultural extension service efficiency via their lower cost, and can they still be effective in diffusing information? So from the literature, we do have much evidence that information and communication technologies can affect access and information diffusion. And on the downside, though, they are quite location-specific, but also person-specific. There can be infrastructural constraint related to the level of connectivity, or individual level specific constraint related to device availability, but also digital literacy. So with this project, what we contribute is evidence on the effectiveness of a platform-based intervention addressing digital literacy constraint within the intervention. Second, this project is linked to another stream of literature, which is related to platform-based service provision within the agricultural sector in developing countries. And also here we have a lot of evidence. And in this literature, we can see how most of the time, the technologies of these platforms are either very basic, so like SMS, sharing videos on WhatsApp, or let's say more 2G than 3G technologies, if you're familiar with this vocabulary. And also they are quite subsector specific, or in some cases, even crop specific. For example, there are papers related to cotton farmers in India or rice farmers in Nigeria, for example, like Arun and co-authors 2021. In our case, what we provide is a web-based platform, which is mobile friendly, so can be used also on smartphone. And we provide evidence on this platform across that offers services across all subsectors of the agricultural sector in Indonesia. Indonesia is also one of the countries that is understudied in the literature. On the third stream of literature that we contribute to, we deal with the effectiveness of training intervention for extension workers and farmers. Oftentimes, the effectiveness of this training is looked at separately, so only for the extension workers or only for farmers. What we contribute in this case is offering evidence of the effectiveness of a training that has an integrated framework on both on the demand side of extension services, so farmers, and the supply side, so extension workers. So with this contribution, we hope to answer the question of whether digital platforms can improve the efficiency of extension services. And just to give you a little preview, we use cluster RCT or randomized controlled trials, and we assign different sub-districts of the area to either a fully digital or fully online training, or a blended training, so partially in person and partially online, or no training offer. And what we find for extension workers, that will be often abbreviated with EW, we find an increase in platform knowledge and adoption, but also engagement beyond the training offered, and also integration of the agribusiness practices and topics learned during the training within their extension activities. And this, some of these effects are stronger in the blended training format. For millennial farmers, instead, we find on top of other similar effects also an increase in digital literacy. And for farmer-specific type of outcomes, we found an increase in knowledge and adoption of these agribusiness practices promoted. So a little bit of a context, because Indonesia is quite far from here. Indonesia, in terms of infrastructure, so we talked about that in the evidence has location-specific constraint. In Indonesia, we do not have a constraint in terms of digital connectivity, so the infrastructure there is quite strong. And also in terms of devices, we can think and look about data related to the fact that there are 123 mobile phone, like smartphone, you can think about it that way, subscription per 100 inhabitants. So they do have smartphones. Their subscriptions are mobile internet-based, and that the device availability, so it's not a problem there. There is another important aspect within the Indonesian context that is linked to the agricultural sector. The agricultural sector in Indonesia lately is aging. More than 60% of the farmers are above 53 years old. Oh, and that's quite worrisome for the government. So they tried in recent years to promote the adoption, to promote to younger young students to enter the agricultural sector. And they call them, those who join the sector, millennial farmers. And the reason for it is because they were looking at people below 40 in this project that was started by IFAD in 2019. This project was just offering subsidies to join the market and also partial training to farmers. Still, when this project started, some extension workers, they were lamenting the lack of the digital skills to connect with such younger farmers. So here comes our intervention. So our intervention, as I mentioned before, tries to tackle both the digital literacy barrier and digitalization in agriculture with a focus on agribusiness practices. So you can see on your right, or not, okay, here, a picture of the training offered on the platform. You can see it's quite a user-friendly interface. And this is part of the self-paced course offered on the platform. This course is introduced with a session that is offered either in person or online, and it's related to digital literacy, the use of the platform, which is L'Enteradesa, and some hints to topics related to agricultural digitalization. One thing that I want to mention is that the platform L'Enteradesa is managed by Universitas Gadjah Mada, and who is using its own experts in order to provide reliable information to farmers. So the L'Enteradesa can be seen as a reliable source of information. The intervention, so the training intervention and the self-paced course is also tailored to the two sides of the market. While the content includes for both extension workers and farmers digital literacy and specific agribusiness practices, it has some specific design within it. For extension worker, for example, a lot on ethical and digital engagement with younger farmers. So you can think about it as social media if you want to, with the ethical aspect component included. And for farmers, an additional stronger training on a feature of the platform, which is called Bukutani, which means farmer records, which is a feature that allows you to enter information about your activities, but also how much you earn from your agricultural activities. The intervention has been rolled out between May 2025 and August 2025. And it included not only the introductory session, either on Zoom or online, but also the self-paced course, but also 2 additional monitoring sessions. If you complete the course by attending it, you can receive also a certificate validated by the local Ministry of Agriculture. And if you fulfill additional tasks, you can also receive a competency certificate. As you can see, and this is a link to the next slide, we collected data before and after our intervention. And of course, you might already notice why I haven't talked about productivity, because there is a short period between the intervention and the end-line data collection. So the data that we gather are about a random sample of 166 extension workers and 745 millennial farmers. We use the same denomination as that project because we see it as a follow-up on the IFAD project that I mentioned before. This sample is a proportional random sample in terms of half of the total registered extension workers and registered millennial farmers in the territory. I will not show you the descriptives for the sake of time, but please believe me, or I will show you later, that the demographics are all fairly balanced, and those who are not, we control for them later on. In terms of research design, we have this clustered RCT, clustered at sub-district level, which is the lower unit where a farmer can find an office, an agricultural extension office. So we have 51 sub-districts, and we assign them to this fully online training, so Zoom and L'Enteradesa course on the platform, or blended, in person and delantera as a course, or no offer. What we want to try to achieve is, using the platform, first we want to reduce the direct costs of information diffusion. This training the self-paced course is meant to be dealt with in about 10 days. If you think about the cost of a 10 days training, that can be quite a lot. And a digital platform offers the possibility to reduce it straight away. Then we try to offer training in terms of content on digital literacy. And digital literacy is a skill and much more that can also be transferable to other aspects, not only farming. If you think about digital IDs and governments wanting to push in that direction, this is a skill that really can be used in many other aspects of a person's life. Additionally, we worry that the digital literacy barriers might be too strong in certain cases, and so we want to check whether it's enough to provide a training about it online, or it might be better to make a step back and offer an in-person introductory session to support in joining the platform and explain the first steps on digital literacy. We use intention to trait estimation with a standard OLS within an ANCOVA framework, which is an analysis of covariance. What does it mean? It's a simple OLS, but the difference is that we use this time zero, so baseline level of the outcome, to take out the variation, to only exploit the variation coming from the treatment intervention. This is, it's shown in the literature that in randomized setting, this does increase precision, given not such a great sample size. In terms of outcome, we, of course, look at compliance with treatment assignment, but we also look at digital literacy, but also, which is on a scale from 0 to 10, where 0 to 3, sorry, where 3 is the highest level of digital literacy, but also indicators related to platform knowledge, adoption, and different measure of platform engagement. Also extension performance with various indicators, and also farmers' knowledge and adoption of agribusiness practices, and keeping some controls. What do we find? For extension workers, we find strong compliance in both treatments. We do not find any digital literacy effect because actually that is already high in extension workers. We see an increase in platform knowledge and adoption, and also in platform engagement. While they do increase the integration of these agribusiness practice topics within their activities, we do not find any difference in the number of activities or farmers reach yet, while for farmers reached and millennial farmers reached, the coefficient is positive, but not yet significant. I mean, potentially due to timing or power issues. And on the millennial farmer side, we find higher compliance in the fully online format, hinting at potential constraint of attending the in-person session. We do find, in this case, an increase in digital literacy, as well as in platform knowledge, adoption, and engagement across multiple dimensions. We also find an increase in platform agribusiness practices, adoption, and knowledge, but we do not find any relevant result on production due to the timing. Potentially, we hope due to the timing, but we will follow up on another survey wave next year, hopefully. In conclusion, what I want to let you know is that we find increased access and diffusion of information and effective knowledge transfer for extension workers, especially in the blended format. We find increase in human capital, so digital literacy, access and diffusion of information, and potential productivity gain via the adoption of practices. And given that this is a relatively low cost intervention, so it's about $14 for the fully online training and $27 for the blended one per participant of the introductory session, we can say that the blended format is, in this sense, more cost-effective per extension for extension workers, while the fully online format is more cost-effective for millennial farmers because, given comparable results, one is cheaper than the other. So thank you for your attention. I hope I was on time, and I'm open to any question. I rushed a bit.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I think it was on slide 7 that you said that the intent of this program was to develop general digital literacy. And I'm wondering, to what extent was the people being trained in agricultural specific knowledge, such as what crops to sow, when to harvest them, what to do in response to weather forecasts, and that sort of thing?
Thank you for the question. So, as I mentioned, there are two components. The digital literacy one, while it was more focused on agriculture, we focus on aspects across all different dimensions of digital literacy that on purpose are not only related to agriculture because of its potential throughout. So that was intentional. Something like, for example, digital safety. Digital safety means that it's important for you to have a different professional digital identity compared to a personal one, and how to protect your data. So this is one of the topics, for example, related to digital literacy. The second part of the content was related to agricultural digitalization. And within that, we focused mostly on 3 types of agribusiness practices, two of them linked with the feature of the farm record, so agribusiness management, financial record, and also marketing, including also the e-commerce aspect. We did not offer a strong push related to productivity aspect. We did show how to automate certain practices. For example, in the crop cultivation subsector, we showed how to automate irrigation. In the livestock, for example, we showed how to automate distribution of foraged cattle. Just to tailor each example to all subsectors. We also had one for forestry, with pesticides and so on. Also for fisheries, of course. So we do not have a strong practical agricultural focus in terms of on-the-field practices, if you mean in that direction. But this doesn't mean that farmers do not have access to those information on the platform. And if you allow me to follow up on that, maybe I will show you quickly maybe the graph on the platform engagement. So maybe help me getting you through. So these are the coefficient for the fully online and blended treatment. The first dark green up here is whether they use any other Lantera as a feature. In terms of post, for example, a post can be about any other activity. So it can be, for example, about soil testing, pesticides, climate-friendly practices, can be about whatever. So they do use it to inform themselves. And this happens for extension workers, but also give me a second, for farmers as well. Actually, oh, sorry, I went on the wrong one. Platform engagement. Farmers, you do not even see the, I didn't even put the 0 here, vertical line, because the results in this case of engaging with the platform on other dimensions to look for reliable information is quite strong, I would say. So if you, for example, look at reading post, it's about 28 percentage point effect. I hope
Thanks for
I was exhaustive.
informative answer.
Just wondering how you evaluate if people have followed the program. Do you make exam? Do you follow at the operational fields to see whether they implement the methods and so on?
Yes. So we do have monitoring data. I did not present results in terms of monitoring data, but only in terms of reported end-line attendance and compliance with the treatment. The reason for it is linked to the ethical clearance procedure. While doing that, we did not say that we would have linked the survey data with the platform data. I can look at the monitoring data, and they are quite similar. In terms of implementation-wise, it's a good point because usually digital platforms, or some of them, and this one in this case as well, is open to everyone. So everybody can access it. How do we prevent the control group to access this self-paced course? We forced basically with a link, like not a link, with an authorization that was given directly to the specific farmer. And then we monitor the attendance. There were these 2 monitoring sessions that allowed to verify the attendance and provide certificates. We also provided like the best performer prize as well, but I don't think this is research relevant nonetheless. But thank you so much for the question.
Thank you for the presentation. So I have a question about, because you advocate your platform as a public intervention tool, more or less, but I was wondering if your digital platform ecosystem or research in this area was also looking at the platform as private way of diffusing information, because information is costly, so could be a good, partly public or private.
Just to clarify, are you asking me if whether this platform could be privatized, or are you asking me like why aren't they making money out of it? Or I'm not sure I understood the question. That's a
yes, could be. Okay. Why public? So
yeah. So I mean,
public.
First of all, it's managed by the Faculty of Agricultural Extension and Communication of the University, Universitas Gadjah Mada. They are a university, so I'm not sure whether they are allowed to do that for profit. But this is also the idea of like governmental extension services are publicly provided. And if it can be used across also Indonesia, this is what we will hope for, like that it takes up and scales up. It's offered in Bahasa, which is the national language, and it can be seen as a public good. Of course, it does have a value. It would be ideal to potentially monetize and integrate in there, but that is not up to us, so I cannot.
It's free.
You mean for with ads?
Message of application is free.
Yes.
Why? Be tarified. Like
I mean, extension service. Maybe we are not businessmen, we are economists, and we hope for a better social outcomes. Maybe that's the answer.
yes, that's a question.
Okay.
Could be better if you have a good tariff. I don't know. It's not that's
okay.
Profit. It's not profit. It's not for profit goal. It's maybe for.
Nonetheless, nonetheless, the government is currently spending money for providing extension services. If it can save money, it's not profit, but. Oh, we will think about it, but thank you so much.
We have time for a very quick question. Yes. Actually, I was wondering, thanks very much for the presentation. I was wondering about the sample size, and I was wondering as well, to your question, like actually there is, like I imagine that the funding is coming from Europe, right? So the investments must be related to agri-food businesses in Europe applying to Indonesian kind of land grounds, right? So that's why it's free in a way, because it fosters the agri-food business and the profit in Europe. So I guess that's why it's free. Is a question, and I was wondering if in the platform there is also training on like debt and debt management of farmers, because I know it's a major issue in the global south, mostly in Indonesia and India. So that's thanks again.
So regarding the sample size, yes, it's not that big. And indeed, our estimates are a lower bound because it's a platform. For example, for platform adoption, we do see also an increase of the platform in the control group, while it makes it harder for us evaluators to find an effect. It can be seen as beneficial because more users of the platform, the better it is in terms of reaching out to farmers and extension services. Regarding the funding comes from the German Research Foundation and the chair of econometrics. So German Research Foundation from our research group, so DPE. And it's not linked to any specific European agribusiness project. And regarding other training types present on the platform, there are currently not only blog posts, but also other courses. One, for example, related to soil testing, and now a new one that just came out related to only automation of agricultural practices.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. And I will leave you to Sarah's presentation.
Much. Oh, sorry. Okay. Yeah, if you want, please. So we started a little bit late, but I will try my best to keep on time. I have my presentation.
Yeah, with the timeout.
Oh, it's okay. Don't worry.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So here we go. This is a paper about food security. It's a joint work with Andrea Crippa and Luca Pieroni from University of Perugia, myself. So first of all, why food security? We feel an urgency to work on this topic because despite relevant global progress on food security, we know that hunger and malnutrition remain persistently high in many areas of the world, with recent estimates by FAO saying that they are on the rise once again, especially in sub-Saharan Africa. In sub-Saharan Africa, there is the highest burden, which is frequently compounded by external factors such as climatic shocks, weak market integration, economic instability, and persistent structural inequalities. We particularly focus on climate variability since we know there is large literature on that. There are many channels through which climate variability can affect food insecurity through, for example, agricultural production, food prices, so market functioning, but also labor income and health conditions. What is very important is to keep in mind that also transitory shocks generated by climate variability can generate persistent welfare losses. So we have some cumulative process, and this is important because it leads to the need of analyzing food security as a process over time. There is a large literature on food security, on the link between food security and climate change, climate variability. We found that there are some specific limitations quite common in this literature. Why? First of all, because food security is, by definition, a multidimensional concept. According to FAO, it is composed by 4 main pillars: availability, access, utilization, and stability. And most of the literature is able to use one indicator at a time to measure specific components of food security, which is a constraint deriving from the availability of data and how we can treat a multidimensional concept such as food security. So whatever the indicator you use, either dietary diversity or caloric intake, food expenditure, just to make some examples, of course, these indicators are highly informative to talk about and analyze food security, but none of them is able to identify in a full way the underlying conditions generating the outcome, so food security level. So there is a measurement gap, and we think that this measurement gap is particularly relevant when we want to track what is the evolution of food security over time, which is exactly what we are looking at. So we propose a latent variable approach to fill this gap. So we conceptualize with our work food security as a dynamic latent process, and we analyze the persistence of food security, how households place themselves in different food security levels, what is the persistence of that status, what is the upward mobility of households and the downward risk across different regimes of food security. We apply our hypothesis and we test our hypothesis in 3 sub-Saharan African countries, which are Ethiopia, Malawi, and Nigeria. And as I said, we particularly focused on climate variability and more specifically on drought, early drought conditions. So, and we add some controls about the household and territorial characteristics, in particular, if the households are female-headed or not, because we know that these characteristics may lead to specific challenges. What about latent variable models? They are increasingly used in many fields, in many domains, but not so much on food security. We found a few studies on food security adopting a latent variable approach. 2 of them are based on individual countries, and Bartolucci and Farcomeni, which is our methodological reference, apply this, our same methodology and Eden Markov model to global food security dynamics, but without adding additional controls. For example, characteristics of the households, of the territory where they live, etc. And so our main contribution is the adoption of this kind of models to model the food security as a latent concept, and adding this control, especially as related to climate variability. The data we use come from the Living Standards Measurement Study, and we use the 3 countries that you see highlighted in the map, so Nigeria, Ethiopia, and Malawi. There are data also coming from other countries, such as Mali, Niger, Tanzania, but in these cases, our selection criteria were not satisfied, because for the kind of analysis we are doing, we need a considerable temporal window. So we required at least 4 waves of data collection to have a reasonable time to trace the evolution of food security and complete information about food security and the characteristics of the households. So we ended up with 3 countries, Ethiopia, Malawi, and Nigeria, and these are the survey here where the Living Standards Measurement Study was conducted in these countries. As you can see, the rounds of data collection are very, very close in time, so we can control also for major external dynamics. Our main observable variable used in this study is the Household Dietary Diversity Score, the HDDS, which we use as the observable outcome of food security. And on these observable outcome, we reproduce the temporal sequence of these data, and then we derived the latent process generating these observable outcome. The HDDS is calculated using 12 food groups, and basically it asks to households what is the common consumption of staple food in the previous 24 hours. We recorded this index into 3 ordered categories of progressively higher level of food security. So we have some households in a severely food insecure situation, in a moderately one, and in a food secure situation. According to our data, the average value is 1.74. So basically, on average, households within the 4 waves in the 3 countries belong to the moderately food insecure situation. As I said, we have some covariates. The first one is what we call early drought warning. It is derived from the SPEI index, and we use the 3-month windows, temporal windows, to calculate this variable. And we set quite a low threshold to capture early drought conditions, minus 0.5. This is a milder threshold with respect to the minus 1.5, which is usually applied by the literature. This is because we want to capture the early stages of water stress, and not only where drought is formally recognized as a severe drought, because we think that this early stage is able to produce specific effects, especially on rural households. And there is an increasing literature using this kind of thresholds. Then we control for the gender, and this is a dichotomous variable, taking the value of 1 if the household head is a woman, or 0 otherwise. And then we have a control for urban or rural households. We have fixed regional effects, included in all specifications to account for unobserved heterogeneity. As a descriptive statistic, I would like just to underline that female-aided households consistently report lower average HDDS in each country and in each wave of data collection. So there is a structural gap here. This is the model. It's an hidden Markov model, very, very quick. We have this observable variable, which is the HDDS. It's an objective measure largely adopted in food security literature. And then we reconstruct the latent process generating this observed variable. And this latent process is structured across different latent states of food security. And these latent states are those we are analyzing in this dynamic analysis. So we calculated the initial probability of belonging to a specific latent state with respect of belonging to another latent state with and without covariates. And then we calculate the transition probabilities of moving upward or downward according to the objective indicator we have. We selected 2 latent states, very simple structure, and this is something deriving from the data we have. So using the big criterion, we minimize the criterion using two latent state, as you can see on the table, and this is the selection we did. So we labeled these different latent state has a low dietary diversity and a high dietary diversity. And basically looking at the objective indicator, the objective HDDS, the observed one, we see that we can basically split the sample between households having a food insecure situation belonging to the first latent state and those having quite a secure food security situation belonging to the second latent class. And you see that the distribution of the two, it's really consistent with what we expect from the data. Results. The initial probability of belonging to a low dietary diversity state of food security is 26.5%. So this is the percentage of households belonging to a food insecure situation. These people, these households, have a 65.6% of probability of moving upward, which is quite good, but it's not enough. And in particular is pretty lower of the transition probabilities of remaining in the same latent state. So what we found is a very asymmetric food security dynamic with a very, very clear path dependence, especially for those belonging to the high dietary diversity state. So those belonging to this latent state have all more or less 92% of probability of remaining there then. What are the covariates? What are the factors affecting the transition probabilities? We found really, really stable and consistent results about the early drought warning, the gender and urban dimension. So being affected by an early drought situation reduces the probability of moving upward. The last column reports the average marginal effect, affects this probability by reducing it by 9.8 percentage points, which is quite an effect. Being in a household, a female-added household, the effect is reduced by 5.9 percentage points, whereas living in urban areas increases the probability of moving upwards. So this is connected with probably higher integration, market integration, the availability of different food items, etc. Once we disaggregate the results for each country, as you can see, we found the same consistent results with a very high significance level. And for all countries, being exposed to early drought conditions or the gender of the household head show exactly the same effect. What is the interaction between these two covariates driving negatively the transition probabilities to move to a higher latent state of food security? As you can see on this chart, if you female-added households face a sort of compounded disadvantage in the sense that the probability is lower just because the household is a female-added, but if this household also experiences an early drought condition, this effect is increased. So there is a sort of cumulative effect in reducing the probability of moving upwards. We found also some subnational heterogeneity in early drought effects. So you see on this map, using subnational units, that there is quite a variation between different districts in the three countries, with darker shades indicating where the negative impact of early drought is higher with respect to other districts. This is very important because with this kind of approach, we can disaggregate the temporal and spatial effects of different covariates, of different co-founding factors on how food security look like. So this kind of exercise may be highly useful to predict where the risk is higher at the very local level. We ran a lot of robustness checks. We performed some OLS estimates, so standard econometric models. We used alternative SPAY temporal windows. We use a different codification of the HDDS outcome. And most importantly, we adopted a crop-adjusted specification drought exposure measure. So basically, we selected the main crop cultivated in these countries, the staple food, and then we adjust the SPAY, the climatic variability, according to the growing season of this staple food. And what we found are very, very similar and consistent results. So these are the findings that I have already commented. So I go directly to the policy implications. This is the last slide. We think that this work provides three main policy priorities. The first is that early warning systems for drought is relevant in the sense that food insecurity is not only contemporaneous shock, effect to a shock, it's a dynamic process, and it reacts even at this lower threshold of water stress. And we found clear evidence on that. So drought responses should be geographically targeted and very context specific. A second policy priority is about targeting structurally vulnerable groups. And in our example, in our exercise, we found that female-aided households represent this vulnerable group. And finally, addressing the rural-urban divide, because the urban advantage highlights persistent rural disadvantages. And this is very, very clear from the results. So these are the main policy implications, and I'm open to your questions and comments. Thank you very much. Okay, to be honest, we are running out of time. So if you want to stay a few minutes more, I'm really, really happy to listen to your questions and comments, but feel free to go for a coffee if you want, please.
Thank you for your very nice presentation. Many things I couldn't understand, unfortunately. The first one, when your index 0, 1, 2, or you say a group, but a group is a family, or what it is? It's somebody in the family?
The unit of observation is the household. So we have, yes, we have more than 40,000 households.
So somebody in the household ate something, or everybody? What is the detail of what is happening in this household?
Yeah, so the survey is run at the household level. So we have these 42,000 plus observations. And for each household, the interviewer asks, what are the foods that you have consumed in the household during the last 24 hours? And there is a list of 12 food items. And each of them is selected if consumed within the household.
Okay, thank you. Now, a Wenger question. Sorry, a Wenger question. But when you write your ratio of probability and you have a linear term on the right, I was wondering if you assume, if there is an underlying stochastic process, you assume IAID on random term underlying, because you may say there may be Bayesian correlation, and then you cannot really write your formula. So you assume implicitly they are IID, the shock?
This is exactly what a latent variable approach allows to do, because we do not have to assume this kind of characteristics, because
Okay.
yeah, sure, because you basically, okay, you can control for heterogeneity and unobserved effects between observations, and you use how the observed outcome look like in each stage to derive the process. And you are not assuming that this is the error term is random or not. Okay, but yes, the process is linear. This is correct.
Okay, and the last question, I try to phrase it, but in the process, I was wondering, listen to you, is for the dynamic, if there is not a missing variable, it's not a criticism, of course, but which is your state of not aggressivity, dynamism, which depend on how much you ate. And of course, if you don't eat for a few days, your state of dynamic is not very good. So even if there is food, you don't know where, and you don't fight to get it. And then it's no more transition probability, but given my state of, I don't know the word, combativity, given my, which depend on the history, what is the probability I can get food, which depend on the nature, but it depend on you. Does that make any sense or totally?
Yeah, I get
not?
your point. What I can say is that there are many studies providing, let's say, validation exercises on the reliability of this kind of dietary diversity score calculated on the previous 24 hours with the normal, let's say normal consumption within the household in a larger period of time. Okay, so there are many studies providing evidence that there is a very high correlation between what you are normally consuming in the previous 24 hours at the household level with respect to the consumption in some weeks before. Okay, so there is a sort of stable process under there. This is because the food items included in this kind of survey are really staple food. Okay, so it's the basic dietary selection for these households. So we use this literature to confirm the reliability of this kind of data and a broader temporal vision, not just the previous 24 hours. But you say also it depends on the attitude and behavior of households. We can control for that.
Wind over time.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, I understand. Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Sorry, I'll try to be very brief. Thanks very much for the presentation.
Yep.
I found very interesting the gendered kind of approach. I would be interested as well, and I know some approaches that adopt a socio-metabolic kind of approach to see also the class vulnerabilities. So depending on the amount of energy and food that one social class can have access to, what is the vulnerability then to weather extremes as droughts? That could be, I think, an interesting kind
So
of.
your suggestion is to, let's say, change the indicator into, for example, a caloric intake to see if there are
yes.
similar results.
And
Okay.
if there is a relation also with energy security together with food security, so to have like a kind of broader approach. But I found this one very interesting. And I guess to reply also to Andre's question, I guess this latent variable approach allows, if I understood correctly, yes, for like linearity in its assumptions, but a posteriori adjustment.
Yeah,
Is
exactly.
that right?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
right.
Thanks. Then very interesting.
Thank you. And thank you for your suggestion.
Déclarative. To declare. Sorry, even if they fulfill a survey. So maybe they mean something, you know, because they are so starving, or maybe, I don't know. And in particular, when you make a difference between men and women, maybe it's interesting to see that as a behavior way of answering, not of declaring. But it's not objective, it's declaration. Do you have the same problem for the household in France for the budget of a family?
That's a very good point. Thank you for this comment. Yes, you're right, in the sense that I use this term objective just to trying to distinguish between what we observe, the data we have, and the latent state that we derive from this data. So this is the idea of using the objective word. But I completely agree with you. This is a self-reported information. So it is objective till a certain extent, okay? It's a self-reported.
It's not objective. They declare.
Yeah.
So, but I think it's interesting to see that as a subjective point for certain characteristic of the answers, especially for women, men and women.
These data coming from the Living Standards Measurement Study are widely used in the food security literature, and there are some studies analyzing the consistency of the answers, not just in relation with these indicators, but more broadly about the consumption behavior of households. And I mean, the results are quite positive in the sense that there is this coherence between answers according to the specific characteristics of the households. But sorry?
Just for the coffee break.
Yeah.
Before the coffee break, I went to the website to look at this index, which looks interesting, but I didn't understand. It is not really, when I see how you rank groups, it looks like developed countries and so on. But in the web, I see that, for example, the score for Iraq is quite very high, but for the US is quite medium and so on. So do you know how it is constructed for me?
The HDDS?
Yes.
The Living Standard Measurement Study is not collecting data in the US.
No, I have in the map. I was in. I can show you, but not. They do not collect for Europe, for example, for France and so on.
Okay.
For the US, they are collecting for China, for many countries. I went. Maybe I can show you the.
Yeah, sure. Many countries also outside sub-Saharan Africa, but I honestly do not know what you are referring to right now. So we can check together.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll
we
check
can
it.
check together. Thank you. I think there are any other questions or comments. I think we can conclude here this session. Thank you very much for your attention and for your passion. We are 15 minutes late. So thank you very much for being here and see you around. Thank you very much.